Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. The much anticipated release of the best hacker of the Stellar Hunters, Silverwolf, has finally infiltrated our wallets. In today's video, I'll be giving you all the ultimate guide for Silverwolf. You guys asked for it, so I'm delivering a much more comprehensive guide for Silverwolf. Now, unfortunately, I'm still not done creating a maximizer for Honkai Star Rail, which, by the way, I'm actually working on. But I still have a good amount of math for you all for this video, and a thorough breakdown of her kit. We will also take a look at some stat recommendations like effect hit rate, energy recharge, speed, and of course we'll go through the usual light cones, relics, team building, and eidolons. So Silverwolf actually changes everything, and we're just going to dive right into the most important part of her kit, her skill. Allow changes? ? So we all know what we want Silverwolf for. It is for the ability to implant a weakness onto the enemy. Now the wording on this skill makes it seem way less powerful than it actually is, with it claiming that Silverwolf implants a random element from her team onto the enemy. However, what if I told you it wasn't as random as you think? This is the most important fact about Silverwolf's skill. Silverwolf implants a weakness from your team that the enemy does not naturally have. In this clip against the anti-matter engine core, it has physical and fire weaknesses. Since her team consists of Natasha, Seele, and Silverwolf, this means that it's possible for our team to implant either physical or quantum, if it was completely random. But because the enemy naturally has physical weakness, Silverwolf will always implant quantum as a weakness, and I did this many times, it was always quantum. Let's take another example. Let's say we want to use Seele as our main DPS against this robot in Forgotten Hall 12. Because this thing has electric as a weakness already, we can bring Seele, Silverwolf, Tingyun, and Bailu. Although this team is able to implant both electric and quantum, because the enemy has electric as a weakness, we're guaranteed to implant quantum on it every time. Naturally, this pairs best with Seele, as this means that as long as the enemy is missing quantum as a weakness, filling up the other two slots with elements that the enemy is weak to will lead to a guaranteed quantum weakness application. However, this does not mean that she's not good with other main DPSs. In fact, Silverwolf is great against enemies actually with quantum weakness, even if your main DPS isn't a quantum character, because this means that you can guaranteed apply a different element if you choose to. For example, let's say you want to use Dan Heng against Cocolia. Well, we can now build a team with Silverwolf, Dan Heng, Fire Trailblazer, and Bailu as the healer. This will guaranteed apply wind weakness when you use Silverwolf's skill. This example demonstrates how Silverwolf can work with non-quantum DPS characters, albeit in a much more limited way in comparison to quantum DPS characters, but just by being able to deterministically build your team to apply the one weakness you need in many situations, this is already huge and honestly changes everything when it comes to this game, and is huge for Silverwolf.
This changes everything.
Anyway, enough about how her less than pure random implantation works. Let's say she successfully implants a weakness. She also reduces the enemy's resistance to the implanted element by 20%. But if she implants a weakness that the enemy already had, she doesn't apply this 20% elemental resistance penetration. She further reduces the enemy's resistances to all damage regardless of what implantation she does by 9.3% at level 8. In this example against the antimatter engine, which also does have some innate quantum resistance, by just using Silverwolf's skill, Seele's damage went up by 44%. This is a huge increase just from Silverwolf's skill. Her ultimate user ban is much more simple, thank goodness, and it does a decent amount of quantum damage. It also reduces the defense by a whopping 42.75% at level 8. The defense shred lasts for 3 turns, and this ability adds 28% to Seele's damage. And finally, she has her talent, Awaiting System Response. Whenever she attacks an enemy, she implants a random bug reducing the enemy's attack, defense, or speed. From my observations, the bug implanted appears to be random, and if the enemy already has a bug, it will attach a bug that the enemy doesn't already have. Now, I have not 100% confirmed this due to the smaller sample size that I was able to do, but that is based on my initial findings. Anyway, with all her debuffs active on an enemy, it leads to an incredible 97% damage gain to Zila's damage. Let's also add in her signature Lycone as super in position 1. Zila is now doing 221% of the original amount of damage that she was doing without any debuffs from Silverwolf. That is a huge damage boost from one single character. But we do need to take a look at how much she improves Zila's damage against a quantum weak enemy, because this is another important scenario. Because of the lack of the weakness implanting and thus the 20% resistance reduction, now Zila is only doing 165% of having no buffs in comparison to doing the 221% damage. Still, this Silverwolf provides invaluable damage buffs to enemies even if they're already quantum weak. Oh yeah, and she also has a basic attack that does a bit of damage and applies a bug. And she has a technique that when used will do a good amount of toughness break to all enemies regardless of their resistances. It also counts as an attack, thus applying the bug and even her signature Lycone's entanglement. Now in terms of Trace priority, level up her skill and ultimate, obviously, and then her talent. Then her basic attacks are the lowest priority. So before we dive into what gear Silverwolf wants, let's understand a couple of useful stats for her, starting with the effect hit rate. Silverwolf really wants to be able to implant weaknesses onto the enemy. As such, we need effect hit rate to make it more consistent. Now, some important enemies that you fight in the Forgotten Hall have a 40% chance to resist status effects. So how much effect hit rate do we need? By doing some simple algebra and plugging it into this formula, with a level 10 skill, which leveling up her skill levels up the base chance to implant a weakness, Silverwolf needs 96% effect hit rate to achieve a 100% chance to implant a weakness on a high resistance Memory of Chaos enemy that has 40% resistance. Although honestly, a 90% chance to implant is good enough, and to achieve that you need 76% effect hit rate. Let's also talk about her energy recharge. Since Silverwolf's ultimate costs 110 energy, and you're refunded 5 energy when you use your ultimate, this means we need to generate 105 energy as fast as possible. Let's say you use her skill 3 times in a row, you'll want 16.67% energy recharge to get her ultimate, assuming no other sources of energy. This can be achieved through a 5-star link robe. With a free-to-play Lycone before the tutorial mission starts, it's harder to predict due to the RNG nature of her bug 2, which drops the defense and thus improves the uptime on the before the tutorial mission starts passive. I still think it's nice to have some energy recharge anyway to guarantee the ultimate uptime in situations where you might not be able to activate its passive consistently. So that's the perfect segue to talk about what Lycones you should use for Silverwolf. It's actually really simple because we don't have many choices. Overall, her best Lycone is by far and away her signature Lycone. It provides 24% effect hit rate, some crit rate if the enemy has a bunch of debuffs on them, which you will be able to achieve with Silverwolf, and a very reliable additional debuff, the Aether Code, which makes the enemy take 12% more damage for one turn. This is an easy 5 slime out of 5 slime rating. Now for people who don't plan to pull for a signature Lycone, just wait until you can play the event and grab the before the tutorial mission starts event Lycone. You'll be able to get this thing to super in position 5 completely for free, and it will provide you a ton of effect hit rate and a good amount of energy as well. This thing honestly deserves a stellar 4.5 slime rating. And honestly, I wouldn't consider any other Lycone for Silverwolf because you absolutely have one of her best options completely free to play in the event Lycone, but I did add my personal rating to a few of them, as you can see. Up next are relics, and there's 2 main ways to approach building Silverwolf. First, we need to understand speed breakpoints, because for Forgotten Hall, it's highly recommended to be able to clear floors 9 and 10 in 10 turns for a specific team. We want to squeeze out some extra turns for Silverwolf. Here's a chart for speed breakpoints to gain extra turns. Silverwolf has a base 107 speed. With the 4-piece musketeers and speed boots, you'll be over 134 speed and be able to go 14 times. And if you can get some bonus speed substats and hit 143 speed, you can go 15 times total. As you can see, the more speed Silverwolf has, the more she's able to support the team, apply her debuffs, or even generate some skill particles with her basic attacks. So yeah, speed is important, and if the Musketeers help you reach these breakpoints, then it's an incredible 4-piece set for Silverwolf. For the early to mid game, this is an easy 5 slime out of 5 slime relic set. Up next we have the Genius of Brilliant Stars. Silverwolf's personal damage is actually quite decent, but it is honestly quite difficult for even in the mid game to early end game to build her up to do good damage. This is because you should prioritize effect hit rate and energy recharge, which are main stats on relics, and thus cut into her offensive stats. However, as relic quality improves, this becomes a great option as you'll be able to squeeze more damage out of Silverwolf. I will give this a 5 slime rating. Afterwards, we can consider the Thief of Shooting Meteor. Silverwolf is uniquely able to break quantum on enemies that aren't weak to quantum, and this set still provides something because of that. But still, I personally feel like the above two options are better, although honestly, if you're trying to min-max her damage in the early to mid game, this is actually a pretty good option. And lastly, if you've got nothing else at all, let's say you've been farming Seele artifact sets, you can still use the 4-piece Guard of Wuthering Snow, because it does provide something that's literally better than nothing. But as you can see, I'm only giving it a 1.5 slime rating. For the 2-piece relic sets, we have really mainly two options. We have the Pan-Galactic Commercial Enterprise, which both boosts Silverwolf's effect hit rate for consistent debuff application. It also provides Silverwolf with some attack to do more damage. The other option, especially if you have too much effect hit rate already, is the Fleet of Ageless, which will provide 8% attack to your entire team. Besides this, in terms of the other 2-piece sets, I don't really recommend any of the others. So what stats should you focus on? I recommend effect hit rate on the body, speed boots, quantum damage sphere, and energy recharge link rope. For substats, you should focus on enough effect hit rate, then get speed, and some crit rate and crit damage is always nice. Let's talk a bit more about teams now, even though we already covered it a bit earlier. As mentioned, due to the way that she applies elemental weaknesses and that she applies elements that the enemy isn't already weak to, when team building with Silverwolf, you really want to keep this in mind and be flexible with your teams. However, two characters that will pretty much always massively benefit from Silverwolf are Seele and Qingque. As quantum DPS characters, Silverwolf is ideal for helping them out against enemies that are not quantum weak. Silverwolf is an absolute game changer for these two characters. And as usual, you'll want to run a typical DPS plus support like Silverwolf, a healer, and a 4th flexible slot, which can be either a shielder or another support. And you'll want to match the enemy's elements with everything except for your main DPS, that way Silverwolf can apply the main DPS's element as a weakness onto the enemy. We had examples from earlier, but let's also run through another example. Let's say your two main built DPS's are Dan Heng and Seele as your main DPS's, and you're tackling Forgotten Hall 11. You can put Seele team on the second half and run a Dan Heng team with Silverwolf on the first half. Then you fill in the gaps with preferably a healer and a flexible 4th slot. As we can see, the first team with Dan Heng will apply wind weakness to the most important enemy every single time. Anyway, the examples are endless, and we would be here indefinitely if I were to run through every single scenario. So hopefully with all these examples, you're able to have a rough idea for how to build your teams effectively with Silverwolf. Let's now talk about her Eidolons really quick before we wrap up with my final verdict on her pull value. Eidolon 1 allows her to generate up to 35 additional energy when she uses her ultimate, thus solving her energy problems, and allowing her to use an attack percent link rope, or you can still stick with the energy recharge link rope and get her ultimate every 2 turns. Eidolon 2 allows you to drop a bunch of effect hit rate and still maintain 100% debuff application rate on the most important enemies. Dropping effect hit rate means you can replace it with more offensive stats or even more speed. Eidolon 4 increases her ultimate's damage by up to 100% added to the multiplier itself. Finally, her Eidolon 6 provides her up to 100% bonus damage to the bonus damage multiplier to her ultimate. I haven't done the math for her Eidolons, but you can expect to do a lot more damage with her ultimate with her Eidolons. So let's talk about some last bit of advice on whether or not you should pull for her. Silverwolf is an invaluable support character, especially if you have Seele or Qingque as your main DPS. For these two quantum DPS characters, Silverwolf is easily the closest thing to a must pull for them. She will allow them to really shine in any content, especially against things that aren't weak to quantum. I give Silverwolf an easy 5 slime out of 5 slime rating for Seele or Qingque. Now for the rest of the cast, there is significantly more RNG due to the fact that the enemy might not have quantum weakness, thus allowing Silverwolf to apply quantum as a weakness. However, even if she applies the proper element 50% of the time, it's likely she'll still bring plenty of value in most battles. I'm still going to give her a 4 slime out of 5 slime rating for any other main DPS character. Let me know if I missed anything in this guide, and let me know what you think about our favorite hacker, Silverwolf. If you want more super thorough guides like this one, with a bunch of charts and stuff, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, these videos are a massive undertaking for me, so if you liked it, subscribe for more guides like this, like the video, leave a comment, etc. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.